All right, let's speak to Cal Perry, who joins us now live from the Syrian capital, Damascus. Cal, good to have you with us. So it would seem that lifting this emergency law is no longer enough. So what's next? What more do the protesters want?
Well, the protesters want results, and they've been calling for actual physical results to be seen here on the ground. They want to see a release of detainees. They want to see the right to protest peacefully. Now, the cabinet yesterday did pass a decree saying that people could protest peacefully. They did lift that state of emergency, and they also dissolved the Supreme Court, which deals very secretly with political protests. They seal the files once people are brought in front of that court. The big question on everybody's mind continues to be, what is going to replace emergency law? We keep hearing, in fact, that we could see anti-terrorism laws, that the government could pull that terrorism card out and use that to say these protests are basically acts of terrorism, allowing them to then further crack down on these protests. So the protesters want to see reforms. That's how these protests started. But then violence broke out. They ended up burying their loved ones, and now what they want to see are investigations, trials, and people brought to justice fully.
And the Syrian government, Carl, has repeatedly blamed outside forces for the unrest. What's been the reaction regionally to what's happening in Syria right now?
You know, one of the interesting things was when the government about a week ago pointed the finger at the Muslim Brotherhood. And when you speak to administration officials in Washington, D.C., when you speak to people around Europe, when you speak to diplomats, one French diplomat said, you know, we know what we don't want in Syria. We don't necessarily know what we do want. What we don't want is the Muslim Brotherhood. People are incredibly afraid once they hear those two words, Muslim Brotherhood. They're afraid that this government is going to turn into something radical, that if Assad goes away, what is he going to be replaced with? We have to remember, this is a government that was negotiating with Israel through Turkey. They were sitting down at a table in Istanbul and talking to the Israelis. That was incredibly important to the Europeans and the Americans. People here certainly want to see reforms. I think in Washington they want to see more reforms, more democratic reforms, but they don't necessarily want to see Assad go away, because then they lose potentially a regional ally, somebody they can talk to, somebody they view that could unlock Middle East peace fully.
Okay, thank you very much, Cal Perry, live there in Damascus for us.